So I'm particularly feeling very excited today, for no reason though. So, but I want to talk about this interesting paper by Abigail, McWilliams and Siegel from the Arizona State University. This paper was published on the Academy of Management Journal. And I'm feeling very excited because, like we all know about many methods of this researching, but this is a very unique way you can do your research and churn out the research work as soon as possible. And it's called event studies. I don't know if you heard about event studies. And in this paper, we're going to be taking a look about what is event studies, how to do it right, and what you should take note of if you're doing this kind of research. And it's a very interesting one, and I think thank you for being here. So without further ado, I created a few slides like I always do, and this is a slide. Let me get my beautiful face out. So to start with, welcome, welcome. So today we are going to be looking at this diagnostic critique. So it's like a critique though, but you also understand what we're talking about of event studies methodology. So this is meant to researchers use to measure financial impacts of business decisions. So what is the financial impact of business decisions? How do we measure it? So let's say if Tesla does something, maybe acquires a new company, what is the financial impact on the stock price? So, however, researchers like McWilliams and Siegel found that systemic violation of the rules have tainted much of this research. So, this presentation reviews their audit of the field on the they reviewed the 10-step protocol they created to fix it. So they are saying that there's a lot of event studies there, but researchers are not going about it the right way, and they gave uh, pointers, they gave step on how this could be fixed. So let me go to the slide two. So stay with me. So the story here, the story is in three parts. The problem, which I call the sloppy research, and yeah, and the second is the proof, failed replication, and the third is the checklist. So here is the roadmap of their finding, and let's start with the symptoms. So they actually reviewed 29 top tier studies, 29 top tier studies, and found that researchers frequently ignored basic market rules. So on the evidence part, they replicated three famous studies, and when they fixed the math, the original significant result vanished. So the cure, they propose a mandatory checklist to ensure future research is valid. So I think if you want to do any form of event study research, you should read this research paper. And so these are the three diagnostic cure the researchers actually came up with. So slide three, and why event studies are the standard for financial impact. Now, So we ask ourselves, why do we trust stock price? Why do we use stock price more than accounting profits? Like if you're going into research paper, the old way was using accounting measures, you know, to check, do a particular event influence uh, companies' valuation. We usually use accounting measures, but the problem is that because stock price is harder to fake, so that is why stock prices are used mostly in event studies. Because, like I said, the idea of event studies is to check if a particular event have an effect on companies' financials, and stock prices is very hard to fake. And researchers use this method because, judging from the author, the author explained that if we use accounting measures, that's looking at the balance sheet, which is the old way, accounting numbers can be manipulated by managers, and actually this only looks at the past. And but for stock prices, however, uh, which are forward looking, and they also reflect the true value of future cash flow, and it's generally harder to fake. So ideally, the event study is the arbiter of truth for corporate decisions. So whatever decision the business makes ultimately will affect the stock price, whether negatively or positively. And because event studies cannot be manipulated, stock price becomes the gold standard to measure events effect. So, but accounting can be manipulated, and managers can actually, become bad actors. So, and this looks at the past. So, without further ado, let's go to slide 4. The methodology relies on three fragile assumptions. Now, McWilliams and Siegel emphasize that this method relies on three pillars. First, market efficiency. Now, let's talk about market efficiency. For market efficiency, I think prices must reflect new information immediately. Secondly, which is unanticipated event, which says the news must be a surprise. And thirdly, which is the most critical, no confounding effect, which means you must isolate the event. The event must be in isolation. If a company announces a merger on the same day as a new policy, you can't really tell which one actually moved the stock. So, to reiterate, because this whole video is all about understanding, to effectively use this method, one, there has to be a market efficiency, which means the prices reflect the information immediately. So, and for this, the reaction time must happen in minutes, not months. I will explain this in other slide. Unanticipated event, news must be a surprise and no prior leakage to traders. It has to be a surprise. And number three, there has to be no confounding effect happening at the same time. If you don't understand, you understand it in the next slide. So on this slide, which is slide 5, which says the fallacy of long window. So here, researchers are measuring for long. The problem is that researchers are measuring for long, and the market reacts very fast. So if you listen for months, you add noise, and you don't want noise in your research. So the first mistake the researchers found, the authors of this paper, is that was the problem of long window. Now you need to understand that the real market reacts in minutes, like usually 15 to 90 minutes. But the authors found that researchers are using longer windows up to 180 days, you know. And they explained that listening for 180 days to just hear a 15 minutes reaction is like it's trying to hear a whisper in a noisy stadium, and this introduces much noise. And when you introduce much noise, the real signal is lost. So again, you have the market reacts 15 to 19 minutes. So listening for a very long time introduces noise to your research. So going to the next slide, violation 2, ignoring confounding effect. So here, aren't checking if the problem is that the researchers are not really checking if other big news happened at the same time. You know, uh, you're just focused on what you have in mind, and you're not checking if there's other big news. And this is a huge evaluation. Now, a co-founder, is it confounding? Let me not make a stupid mistake. Now, a confounding is more like other news happening the same time. A good example is if a company wins an award but also declares a huge dividend on the same day, the stock price goes up because of the cash, not the award, right? The author argues that because researchers failed to check for days, they attributed the stock jump to the wrong cause. So you need to check the confounding effect to understand. So if there are events that goes on the same time, you need to put that in consideration. So here, the authors then went ahead to check previous work and gave it a failure rating. So they didn't just guess about this. So McWilliams and Siegel actually went ahead and audited 29 top tier studies, and they found that only 11 checked for confounding effects. And shockingly, only two studies checked strictly for the entire time window. And they concluded that this lack of rigor means that we can't be confident in the conclusion from a decade of management research. I think which is a huge problem. So going to the next slides, which is 8. Slide 8. Oh god, my fine face. For this slide, to prove their point, actually they redid the maths on three famous research paper, and so I think these three famous studies claim that social corporate responsibility changes stock prices. So they went ahead and reanalyzed the exact same firm and dates, but this time they shortened the window, they reduced the window to cut out the noise, like we said before, and they manually removed any company that had other big news happening at the same time. So they did this. So let's actually went ahead and check the results. So uh, let me give more nuance to this. The two papers that replicated are papers from Mesner et al. And Wright et al. Dealing with South African withdrawal and affirmation action. They controlled for confounding events by scanning the Wall Street Journal. And the slide 9, what the long window we are hiding. So the original researchers missed massive news like Steve Jobs leaving, because they weren't actually paying attention. So when the researchers cleaned the data, they found exactly what those long windows were hiding. So one of the studies blamed the stock price drop on political divestitures, but also missed out that Steve Jobs left Apple during the same window. Another study blamed a discriminative lawsuit, but missed out that the company announced planned shutdown at the same time. So the market wasn't reacting to politics; it was reacting to business news. You see, which is a huge problem they found. So, going to slide 10, the results flip, significance evaporates. So, the discovery was fake. It disappeared, and the match was fixed. So, here this the smoking gun. So the red bar shows that the original study claiming a huge negative impact, and then you can see the gray bar is the result after Macmillan, the gray bar here, McWilliams and Siegel removed the noise, so it shrinks almost to zero. So the result went from significant, as you can see, to insignificant. Once they're controlled for confounding events, the evidence that the corporate CSR, the corporate responsibility, um, what is even the full meaning of that again? I think it actually means no, I think corp, hmm, well, corporate social responsibility. Yes, corporate social responsibility. So once they controlled for the confounding event, the evidence that corporate social responsibility affects stock prices evaporates. So, yep, yep. So going to slide 11. So theoretical fallout. Here is the huge problem. Uh, Bad ideas leads to bad theories. Bad data leads to bad theories. Now you are trying to create a theory from bad data, and theories is something that we need to believe. So this I think this has a huge implication to theories. So example, the stakeholder theory suggests that social responsibility acts as a proxy for economic performance. Right? Now the original studies seem to prove this, like the author said, but the author argued that those were actually false positives. Now, their corrected replication found zero coloration, and this implies investors view these decisions as neutral. So, rigor is the only way to protect theoretical truth. So, you need to be careful as researchers. And 12, the cure. So, how do we fix this now? We know the problem. So, McWilliams and Siegel developed a protocol. In the design phase, they said first you need to ensure that the event is new, that the event is new. Second, you need to keep the windows short, and they also recommended a 2-day maximum event window. And researchers must manually screen against the Wall Street Journal to eliminate co-founders. Event must be new, and second, short window. and to screen against Wall Street Journal. So number 13, the how to do the math right. Use special tool for small groups and show your work. So in the analysis phase, if there is a small sample size less than 30 frame, you can use standard math, and they stated that you must use a bootstrap method, and finally be transparent. The authors insist on reporting every firm's name, date in, and also an appendix so others can actually check your work. So, 14, to summarize, this is a cheat sheet for a valid research based on their finding. Keep it short. Anything longer than 2 days introduces noise. Manual screening. You cannot automate this. You have to read the news. You have to read the news. Bootstrap small samples, and standard test fail for small group. Explain outliers. Don't just delete weird data. Investigate ET. And uh, finally, to conclude, McMillan and Siegel are not saying that event studies is the method is bad. The point is not that the method is bad. They argue that it remains a robust, powerful tool, but they insist we must use it correctly by adhering to strict assumptions like market efficiency and isolating the event. We can produce results that are significantly sound, flawless, and a flawless design is critical. So you have it. Thank you. I hope I did a good job in explaining.